Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into this. I want you to imagine the high-stakes, hyper-competitive business environment of the Asia-Pacific region. It's a landscape where survival is absolutely not guaranteed. And crisis management? Well, that's just a daily reality for leadership. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating ebook called The Rehab Gym, Train Before You Operate by Dr. Mike Tang. We're going to explore exactly how modern business leaders are using AI to rehearse their absolute worst nightmares before they actually happen. To kick things off, we need to completely shatter a massive myth. When a business is dying, our immediate instinct is usually just to work harder, right? We're talking 80-hour weeks, endless hustle. But Dr. Tang offers this powerful aphorism that fundamentally changes how we should look at corporate distress. He says, companies don't fail from lack of effort. They fail from late or wrong diagnosis. If the wrong problem gets your team's full effort, that is a fatal trap. And a late diagnosis is often exactly that, fatal. Research consistently proves that leaders miss the early signals of decline. It's this blindness before crisis. They explain away bad data, mostly because, hey, the company's still performing well on paper. But by the time they realize they're out of cash, well, that's just a symptom of a root cause they ignored months ago. They end up stepping into the business equivalent of an operating theater completely unrehearsed. So how do we actually fix this? The methodology introduces this fantastic medical metaphor. On one side, you have the corporate hospital, places like the Turnaround Center, which you can check out at turnaroundcenter.com. That's your emergency room for urgent stabilization and real-world surgery. But on the other side, you have the Rehab Gym. This is a suite of AI-powered simulators where you train before the crisis ever hits. It's where you build that crucial muscle memory in a totally risk-free environment. All right, let's step onto the gym floor. There are 5 main AI simulators that act as the machines in this rehab gym. We've got the Turnaround War Game, Crisis Communication Advisory, Succession Advisory, Cash Flow Advisory, and the Wellness Advisory. Now, these aren't just your standard online quizzes. They are intense, interactive simulations designed for leaders to practice life-or-death business stakes without shedding a single drop of real corporate blood. Let's try out the equipment, shall we? Machine number 1, Cash Flow Advisory, or as we call it, the bloodstream. You can find this specific tool over at cashflowadvisory.org. Cash flow is literally the bloodstream of your company. If it stops circulating, the business dies in weeks. The crucial point here is summed up by an incredibly punchy rule. Revenue is a story, cash is a date. You could have millions in projected revenue, but honestly, if you can't make payroll next Tuesday, you're bankrupt. This simulator trains you to manage a brutal 12-week cash crunch. And what's really amazing is that it's actually calibrated to your specific industry seasonal modifiers. So whether that's a Chinese New Year trough or a Ramadan trading rhythm, it forces you to find the cash floor before your real-world bank does. Moving on to machine number 2, the Succession Advisory. This is the legacy stress test, and you can locate it at successionadvisory.org. You know, a lot of founders ignore a fatal structural gap until it is way too late, especially when their business is deeply tied to their personal identity. 90%, just let that sink in. That is the staggering percentage of family businesses that completely fail to reach the 3rd generation. The wealth, the legacy, it all just evaporates. And that brings us to this incredibly visceral quote from the text. Succession is the only corporate illness that is always fatal if untreated. I mean, the actuarial tables guarantee it. Eventually, the founder is going to leave, one way or another. This simulator, it isn't about emotions. It strictly tests structure. It simulates a sudden 90-day medical absence of the founder to evaluate all the untested dependencies, the undelegated authority, and undocumented relationships. It shows you exactly what breaks when you aren't in the room. Next up, we have the Crisis Communication Advisory, Reputation Under Fire, hosted at crisiscommunicationadvisory.org. Trust is a massive, massive corporate asset. A botched announcement about a pivot, a downsizing, or a creditor's standstill can trigger a fatal loss of stakeholder trust, literally turning a salvageable situation into a total collapse. To manage this, the simulator uses the EDA framework: empathy, data, authority. It runs you through 30 high-stakes scenarios and grades how well you balance acknowledging the emotional human impact, that's empathy, with providing transparent, rational evidence, data, all while making decisive calls under pressure, authority. You get to rehearse the hardest conversations you'll ever have, out loud, before it costs you your reputation. All right, machine number 4, the Turnaround War Game, the operating theater. You can step into this one at turnaroundgame.org. If the other machines are targeted exercises, this one is the full-blown operating theater. You are dropped right into the role of chief turnaround officer for an SME that is rapidly bleeding cash, and you're forced into highly sequenced decisions under strict time pressure. You have to juggle cash, negotiate with creditors, make painful cuts, and handle communication, all at the exact same time. The big lesson the simulation drills into you: you cannot shrink your way to greatness. Cost cutting might buy you time, but executing structural pivots to higher margin segments is the only real way to beat a downward spiral. And finally, machine number 5, the Wellness Advisory, basically preventative medicine, found at wellnessadvisory.org. This one focuses on what happens after the initial crisis is stabilized. Because, as the methodology points out, the most dangerous pathogen to a recovering business is actually the feeling of relief. The Wellness Advisory Simulator acts as an ongoing fitness scan. It runs a reoccurring 27-dimension check across all 8 pillars of corporate health. It's meant to be used monthly or quarterly to ensure that the rigorous discipline you bought through painful corporate surgery doesn't just quietly decay once the danger feels like it's past. So to summarize when to hop on each of these machines, we've pulled together a quick directory here. If you're facing a hard conversation you haven't delivered out loud yet, use crisis communication. If your bank facility is under review, jump straight on cash flow advisory. If you have no tested successor, run the succession advisory. It is a completely comprehensive diagnostic toolkit right at your fingertips. It's also really worth noting how the platform accommodates different leadership styles. The system offers a dual-track approach. By default, it operates on a secular track, driven purely by financial and structural logic. But for owners who prefer to integrate biblical wisdom into their leadership recovery, there's an optional scripture-grounded faith track. The underlying corporate health training is exactly the same in both modes, but this just allows leaders to process the immense spiritual and emotional strain of a turnaround in a framework that fully aligns with their personal values. As we wrap up this walk through the rehab gym, I want to leave you with a very direct, provocative question. It's kind of the ultimate stress test for all the hard work you've put into your company. Will your business survive you? If you disappeared for 90 days tomorrow, would the doors stay open? Don't wait for the storm to arrive to find out the answer. The central lesson of this entire methodology is simple, yet incredibly profound. Train before you operate. You can explore the entire diagnostic powerhouse and find all the simulators we talked about today by visiting corporateturnaroundcenter.com tonight. Get your baseline, find out where you're vulnerable, and build that muscle memory before it truly counts. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.